Have you ever felt, in some silent moment of the early morning, a strange and persistent feeling that this world, with all its rules, pains, and limitations, is not your true home? I am not talking about depression or sadness, but an ancient memory, almost erased, that whispers in the back of your mind saying that you came from a place of infinite light and were placed here, in this dense reality, like someone placed in a cell without knowing the crime they committed. This feeling, which many call intuition or existential anguish, is what the ancient Gnostics called the call of the Pneuma, the divine spark screaming to be heard through the thick walls of matter. What if I told you that this feeling is correct? What if the reality you see, touch, and experience is not the supreme creation of a loving God, but rather an imperfect copy, a simulation designed to keep your consciousness recycling in an eternal loop of forgetfulness? Today we are going to dive into the best-kept secret in the spiritual history of humanity. We are going to talk about the trap of the Demiurge, and more importantly, we are going to deliver the key that was hidden for 2,000 years, the key that Jesus, the living and esoteric Christ, came to deliver personally, so that we could soar through the bars of this invisible prison. Take a deep breath, forget what you learned in catechism or Sunday school for a moment, and open your mind, because what we are going to discuss now is the architecture of your own freedom. To understand where we are, we first need to understand how we ended up here. And this story does not begin in the Garden of Eden, as we were told, but much earlier in the Pleroma, the divine fullness. The texts found in Nag Hammadi, which remained buried in the sands of Egypt for centuries until 1945, tell us a different cosmogony. They say that the true source, the ineffable and unknowable God, is pure light and consciousness, existing beyond time and space. From this source the aeons emanated, which are manifestations of power and virtue. One of these aeons, called Sophia, which means wisdom, desired to create something on her own without the male counterpart and without the direct consent of the absolute source. This act of solitary creation resulted in an anomaly, an entity that was born with power but without the full light of consciousness. This entity was expelled from the Pleroma and, in the solitude of the void, created the material world we know. This being is the Demiurge, often identified as Yaldabaoth, the son of chaos. He is a blind god, not because he cannot see physically, but because he cannot see the spiritual realm above him. He looked into the void, created matter, the planets, the laws of physics, and arrogantly declared, "I am God, and there is no other besides me." If you know the Old Testament, this phrase sounds familiar to you. Gnosticism proposes that the God who demands sacrifices, who feels jealous, who orders wars, and who punishes with floods, is not the supreme source of love, but this cosmic architect, the Demiurge, who built a reality based on duality, suffering, and predation. We human beings are unique because, although our bodies were shaped by the forces of this material world, by the archons, who are the rulers or assistants of the Demiurge, we carry within us a particle of Sophia's light, a spark of the true God that became trapped in matter. This completely changes the view of who we are. We are not miserable sinners trying to please an angry God. We are divine royalty, suffering from amnesia, hostages in a system that feeds on our emotional energy. And how does this system feed? Through identification. The Demiurge and his archons created a brilliant structure to keep us trapped: time and the ego. Think about your life. Think about how you are always chasing the future or regretting the past. Time is the main bar of this cell. Saturn, often associated with the Demiurge in ancient astrology, is the lord of time, the one who devours his own children. Time creates decay, death, and the fear of finitude. And it is fear that generates the dense energy that sustains this matrix. When you feel hatred, envy, extreme fear, or excessive attachment to material things, you are literally serving an energetic banquet for the powers that rule this world. It is a predatory simulation. Modern science is beginning to scratch the surface of this with simulation theory and quantum physics, showing that matter is not solid, that everything is energy, and that reality only behaves in a certain way when there is an observer. The Gnostics knew this 2 millennia ago. The world is a projection, a dense hologram designed to hide the spirit. This reminds me of a crucial moment in my own journey. I vividly remember sitting on a park bench, watching the frenetic movement of people going to work. They seemed like automatons, following an invisible script: be born, study, work, pay bills, reproduce, grow old, and die. At that moment, a terrible anguish invaded me, the feeling that it was all a cardboard set. But instead of despair, I felt a sudden clarity. If this is a set, then I am not the character. I am the actor. I am the observer. This shift in perspective, from I am this person with these problems to I am the consciousness experiencing this life, was my first real taste of Gnosis. Gnosis is not faith. Faith is believing what you are told. Gnosis is direct knowledge, the visceral experience of truth. And it was exactly to bring this gnosis that the Christ manifested. Here we enter the most controversial and liberating point of this message. The Jesus of the institutional church was transformed into a blood sacrifice to appease the Demiurge. They taught us that God was so angry with human sin that he had to kill his own son to calm down. Does that sound like a loving father or a tribal tyrant? The Gnostic Jesus, the one found in the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, and the Apocryphon of John, is radically different. He did not come to pay a debt. He came as a messenger from the Pleroma, from the kingdom of true light, to invade the simulation and wake us up. He is the code breaker, the divine hacker who entered the system to show us the emergency exit. Jesus said in Thomas, "Whoever finds the interpretation of these words will not taste death." He was not talking about physical death, for the body is a disposable garment, but about the second death, the forgetting of the soul, the continuous recycling in the wheel of samsara, forced reincarnation without memory. The main trap of the Demiurge is making you believe that you are your body and your mind. The mind, with its incessant thoughts, its neuroses, and its critical voice, is often not your ally. It is an implant, what the texts call the falsified spirit or counterfeit spirit. It is an artificial layer attached to your soul to keep you tuned to the frequency of matter. When Jesus says deny yourself, he is not asking you to hate yourself or self-flagellate. He is saying, deny this false self, deny this ego built by the system, because it is not you. Gnostic salvation is not being saved from hell after death. It is being saved by knowledge here and now. Hell is ignorance. Heaven is awakened consciousness. Let us take a quick break here. Look around you now. Look at the walls of the place where you are. Look at your hands. Ask yourself, who is it that is looking through these eyes? Do not answer with your name. The name is a label of the system. Who is the silent presence that observes? Hold that question. The ancestry of this wisdom is deep and was persecuted with iron and fire. The Cathars in the Middle Ages were exterminated by the Inquisition because they carried this torch. They knew that the material world was the realm of the Rex Mundi, the king of the world, the Demiurge, and that the kingdom of Christ was not of this world. They refused to swear, to kill, and viewed procreation with caution, as they understood that bringing more souls into the prison of the flesh was an act that should be thought of with extreme spiritual responsibility. They were burned alive, but they sang as the flames rose because they knew that fire could only touch the garment of flesh, not the eternal spirit. This courage comes from the certainty that death is not the end, but liberation from prison, provided that, and this is the big if, you die awake. If you die attached, addicted to the emotions of the earth, coveting matter, full of rancor or dense desire, the law of magnetic affinity will pull you back. The archons will intercept you in the astral planes, show holograms of your loved ones, of deities, and convince you that you have missions to fulfill, karmas to pay, and thus you accept to return, forgetting who you are, to feed the system once more. But what is the technique? How do we escape? How do we use the key that Jesus gave us? The key is the return to radical interiority. The kingdom of God is within you. It is not in stone temples, it is not in empty rituals, it is not in the sky above the clouds. It is in the deep stillness of your consciousness. The Gnostic technique involves the systematic detachment from illusions. You must observe your emotions, without becoming them. When anger arises, you see it as a storm passing outside your house, not as you. Ah, look, the system is trying to generate anger energy through my avatar. When you observe without identifying, you cut the feeding line of the archons. They lose power over you. You become invisible to the emotional matrix. Remember the feeling I mentioned at the beginning? That feeling of not belonging to this place? That is your lighthouse. It is your spiritual GPS. The more you nurture that feeling, not with sadness but with the joy of knowing that you are a stranger in a strange land, the stronger your light becomes. The system will try to distract you. The modern world is a mass distraction machine. Social media, horror news, political polarization, consumerism, pornography, empty entertainment. All of this is designed down to the millimeter to keep your attention turned outward, toward the screen, toward matter. The Demiurge hates silence because in silence you hear the voice of the source. In silence the illusion trembles. The modern validation of this ancient view is surprising. Carl Jung, the great psychoanalyst, deeply studied Gnosticism. He saw in the archons a perfect metaphor for the autonomous complexes of the collective and personal unconscious, the shadows that control us. When you do not integrate your shadow, when you do not illuminate your inner demons with the light of consciousness, they operate your destiny, and you call it fate. Depth psychology and Gnosticism agree the only way out is through. You must face the creature in the mirror. You must look at your own ego, your vanities, your petty fears, and dissolve them in the light of truth. This is not comfortable. Spiritual awakening is destructive. It destroys who you thought you were. Why was this hidden? Why did the great religions transform Jesus into an idol to be worshipped, instead of a master to be emulated? Because a master liberates, an idol enslaves. If you believe that salvation comes from outside, you are controllable. You need the priest, the pastor, the ritual, the tithe. But if you know that salvation is intrinsic, that you are a fragment of God having a human experience, you become ungovernable. You lose the fear of death. And whoever does not fear death cannot be blackmailed by the lords of the world. They hid Gnosis to keep the flock inside the fence, producing wool and energy for the power structures. But now we are in the age of revelation. The veil is tearing. Information is available, but information is not wisdom. Wisdom is the application of information. You need to practice death in life. What does that mean? It means dying to the illusions of the world while your body still breathes. It means that you can be in the world but not of the world. You can have a job, family, money, but none of that owns you. You are the traveler passing through the hotel, using the amenities, but knowing you do not live in the lobby. The concept of the 13th aeon is fundamental here. While the Demiurge's system operates in the 12 aeons related to the signs of the zodiac, the 12 hours, the 12 apostles of the matrix, the 13th aeon is the exit portal, the place where Christ and Sophia dwell, above destiny, above the fixed stars that decree human fate. Accessing the 13th aeon is breaking the barrier of astrological and karmic determinism. It is declaring sovereignty. It is saying, I revoke all contracts made in ignorance. I revoke any permission I gave to be drained. I am free and sovereign, a child of the ineffable light. This changed my view on everything. I stopped seeing suffering as punishment and started seeing it as friction. The friction necessary to wake up those who are sleeping soundly. Sometimes the nightmare needs to get terrible so that you decide to wake up in bed. The world is getting more chaotic, yes, but that is part of the awakening process. The stone masks are falling. The ugliness of the system is being exposed so that we can no longer fall in love with the prison. It is painful to see corruption, evil, war, but it is necessary for detachment. If the prison were a constant paradise, no one would ever want to leave. Suffering, ironically, is the Gnostics' greatest ally, as it breaks the spell of matter. Let us go deeper into the figure of Yaldabaoth. In the texts, he is described as having the form of a serpent with a lion's face. This image is symbolic. The serpent represents attachment to the earth, the lower kundalini, basic instincts. The lion represents devouring solar power, the fierce ego. He is the ruler of this aeon, but he is not eternal. His creation has an expiration date. Your soul, however, does not. When you understand the cosmic hierarchy, fear disappears. You understand that the Demiurge is like a cosmic bureaucratic employee who thinks he owns the company. He has power over the paperwork, the body and material destiny, but he has no power over the shareholder, the spirit. The problem is that the shareholder forgot who they are and believes they work for the bureaucrat. Jesus came to deliver the memo to you. You are the owner. Take your post. There is a practice I want to share, something the ancients called the bridal chamber. It is the union of your conscious self with your divine twin, your angel. Imagine that there is a version of you that never fell into matter, that remained pure and connected to the source. The goal of life is to reconnect with that part. In meditation, visualize this light descending and merging with you. Do not ask for material things. Ask for vision. Ask for strength. Ask for the truth, whatever the cost. Gnostic prayer is not a wish list for a cosmic Santa Claus. It is a frequency alignment. May the light of the pleroma fill this vessel and expel all darkness of ignorance. Now, I ask again, calling back to that initial feeling, that discomfort in the early morning, that feeling of not belonging. Do you realize now how precious it is? It is not a defect. It is your exit ticket. Do not try to drown out that voice with medicine, alcohol, or distractions. Listen to it. Follow it. It is Ariadne's thread that will guide you out of the Minotaur's labyrinth. They hid from you that human imagination is the creative tool of God. The Demiurge cannot create true life. He can only copy and distort. But you have the power to create. When you use your imagination to visualize your freedom, your sovereignty, and your light, you are using a technology that the Archons do not possess. They are jealous of us. That is why they try to keep us depressed and afraid. A creative, loving, and fearless human being is the most dangerous weapon against the Matrix. Quantum science tells us that observation collapses the wave function. The mystic tells us that attention creates reality. Where you place your attention, you place your energy. If your attention is 24 hours a day on the Demiurge's news, you are helping to build his prison. Withdraw your attention. Starve the beast. Invest your energy in self-knowledge, in real love, in beauty, in art, in compassion. Compassion is a frequency that the system cannot process. Unconditional love is the virus that formats the control computer. We are reaching the decision point. The Gnostic key is not a magic word, it is a state of being. It is the state of continuous lucidity. It is living in the world without being swallowed by it. It is knowing that when the physical body fails, like an old garment, you will not panic. You will recognize the clear light. You will not follow the projections of relatives calling you back. You will look up to the fullness and say, I am a being of imperishable light. I return to my origin. And you will pass through the guardians, pass through the planetary spheres, stripping yourself of the layers of the mind, emotion, and desire, until you arrive naked and brilliant before the true Father, the source of all. This knowledge brings responsibility. Now that you have heard this, you can no longer claim complete ignorance. The seed has been planted. What will you do with it? Will you let it die in the dry soil of skepticism, or will you water it with the search for truth? The prison is open. The doors were never locked. We were the ones hypnotized looking at the back wall. Turn around. Walk toward the light. The way out is in. If this message resonated with that deep and ancient part of your soul, do not let this get lost in the flow of internet information. Take a moment. Close your eyes. Feel your own existence. I invite you to subscribe to this channel, not for the numbers, but because we are building an egregore, a community of awakened souls who have decided to stop feeding the system and start remembering. Leave a comment below saying I am sovereign or I break the cycle, to firm your intention on the material plane. Share this video with that person you know who also feels this call, that person who also looks at the stars and feels homesick. Together, we are the glitch in the matrix. Together, we are the awakening of Sophia. Until next time, in the 13th Aeon.